Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today on a Monday. We are presented by Gatorade. I'm Dave Revson. Great to have you with us. An action-packed weekend, lots of NCAA tourney action. We will dive into all of that. But we start with an unlikely but familiar champ in Big Ten softball. That is our big story. Michigan taking down UCLA on Saturday 2-0 to complete an impressive run to the Big Ten title. They were the 8th seed, tied for the lowest ever to win the conference tourney. Team that entered the weekend on the NCAA tourney bubble, left no doubt capturing its record 12th Big Ten tournament title. That is 7 more than any other school. It was the second straight conference tourney crown for the Maize and Blue. Did it largely behind the arm of Lauren Durkowski, who started all 4 games of the conference tourney in the circle, was named the most outstanding player for the 2nd season in a row. Michigan into the NCAA tourney for the 31st time. They will head to Austin, Texas, where they will open play Friday against Central Florida. And head coach Bonnie Tholl joining us now. Coach, congratulations on another conference tourney title, 12th all-time for Michigan. What is it about the Maize and Blue and this time of year?
Well, Michigan, we have championship in our DNA, that's for sure. That started with the people that came before us, with Coach Hutch and all the great, talented women that won championships here in the past. And so we are just on their shoulders. And I have a group from last year that won the Big Ten tourney title. And so we're fortunate to continue on with the tradition. And, you know, things didn't necessarily go our way early in the regular season, but once you have that tournament championship experience, you lean into that a little bit more, and you have a little bit more belief when it becomes turning time. And as we were saying right now we go.
Well, that's what's interesting to me. You talk about that it didn't go that well earlier in the season. This probably would not have been a turning team had you not made the great run here. And I don't know if you had to win the Big Ten tourney, but you certainly had to do well in the Big Ten tourney to make it to the NCAAs. An 8 seed is tied for the lowest ever to win this Big Ten tournament. What was your message to this team as you found yourself, maybe for Michigan, in a little bit of an unfamiliar spot, needing to really prove yourselves in the conference tourney?
Well, we had a really tough April in our opponents when you look at who we had to play, Oregon, UCLA, Ohio State. But we just kept, as a staff, dealing belief and dealing hope. And we kept telling them the reward is coming. Just keep investing in each other, keep investing in the preparation, and the reward is coming. And we saw that, and we absolutely entered this tournament feeling that we can make an impact and that we could win it. And it started with our upperclassmen. They led the way. I asked them to continue to deal hope as well, and to be who they were, and to be the leaders that they've shown all year long. And that things were going to bounce our way. We were going to make the plays and play some clean softball and have some terrific pitching performances in the circle, starting with Lauren Durkowski.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Lauren Durkowski. You're talking about the upperclassmen and the impact they made, and she's just been phenomenal for Michigan in these 4 years at her time in Ann Arbor. It's the 2nd straight year she's been named the most outstanding player of this tournament. Help people understand what Lauren Durkowski has meant to Michigan softball.
Well, we've given her the ball the past 3 years, and we said, you lead us. And she has done nothing but shouldered all that responsibility, and she has led the way. She's been fireball. She's been somebody who's tried to elevate her game, and has certainly elevated her game in every year that she's been in a Michigan uniform. And she likes the ball in her hand, and she knows now when it's time to go. She's going to give it every ounce of energy that she has and every competitiveness that she has until it's time to pass the ball on to her teammate, Erin Hain.
Yeah, that 1-2 punch was phenomenal this weekend. You know, I think it's really interesting as you head into the NCAAs. One of the things we were talking about this weekend in kind of our post-game show after you guys won and beat UCLA was this time of year, particularly when you're not the 1 seed in a regional, you know that you're going to have to knock off some top-level teams. And these were your first 2 top 25 RPI wins. So now that you've beaten UCLA, that you've beaten Oregon who you knocked off earlier in the tournament. What does that do in terms of giving you the belief that, hey, we can go to Austin and beat Texas and emerge from this thing and make it to a super regional?
Well, it definitely helps. And I think even entering into this week at the Big Ten tournament, we had belief. We had our hearts broken a little bit in April. We had been in so many of those games in the 5th, 6th, and 7th inning, and we relinquished, the lead, and we just weren't finishing. And we knew that if we made one minor adjustment, and it took every ounce of energy, whether you were in between the white lines to give that positive energy or not, it was going to take every single one of us in our role to make this happen and make that belief a reality. And I think that moving forward, we're playing our best ball right now. They feel really good about it. If you listen to their interviews, they talk about learning how to win and learning how to win in big moments. And that can't be understated at all. And I think that is the momentum that we have carrying in. And our momentum is our belief right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of these sentiments that you've expressed here in this interview are things we heard in the postgame from your players this weekend. And I think it kind of exemplifies to me this notion of what's being said from the front of the room is really resonating, and that these players are internalizing it. So help people understand, like, this is your 3rd year in this program. You took over for Carol Hutchins, who we all know is an absolute legend, one of the best coaches in the history of the sport, a national championship coach. You were on her staff for nearly 30 years. What's that been like for you, that transition of becoming that voice that clearly is resonating and that they're listening to?
Well, it's my responsibility, right? To be the voice, to be the hope, to bring the message every single day. And I think that's, the players need to hear that. They need to internalize it, as you say, and then they need to execute. And it needs to be a consistent voice. And that's the one thing, I'm channeling my inner Hutch right here, but just the feistiness of Hutch. And I think that's a little bit of what they need right now is that feistiness. And they need to hear that their staff truly believes in what we do and what our preparation has been since September 1. And this is what we've been working for this whole time. And this is what Michigan softball is all about. And I think that, that's how we're going to roll. That's the energy that we're going to bring. And being able to sit shotgun to Hutch for so many years has taught me so many things, and it continues to teach me so many things. I have so many things to learn yet as a head coach. But I definitely have been on really good training ground for 30 years, as you say, and I'm trying to help these kids just achieve so many of their goals, their missions, and their dreams.
It's interesting, and we saw the video of her in the stands this weekend. She has stayed involved. She's around the program, and I think it's challenging, when you have a coach who is a legend like that, and different coaches kind of go about it in different ways in terms of how much they are around, particularly when the successor is someone that they've worked with in the past. Describe that relationship and how it impacts you to kind of have her around, not necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but at some of these biggest moments.
Well, this is Michigan softball, and she'll be the first to say that this is just Michigan softball, but I'm going to tell you that this will always be Carol Hutchins' program. I just happen to be the one giving the signals at third base, filling out the lineup card, helping my staff get better and make our team better. But Hutch also makes us better. We lean into her experience and her advice often. And so having her around is just a boost for all of us, because we know we have her in our back pocket. Anytime we need a little bit of inspiration, Hutch is there to give it to us. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, it's interesting. You obviously grew up in this program. You were a great player, 4-time All-Big Ten player. So it's personal, right, when it's your alma mater. Maybe it's a little bit different than it is with some other people. What has it meant to you to take over and become the steward of this program that you were a part of since you were a teenager?
Well, it's a feeling you can't necessarily describe in words, other than, first you become a part of Michigan, and Michigan becomes a part of you, and that's really what this whole experience has been for me. and my family, and so many of the sisters that I've now have, that I played with, the players I've coached. It is a family affair here. And I still get the biggest thrill out of seeing Michigan win in anything. It's who I am. It's a part of growing me up. It's a part of what has shaped me as a person, being a part of a great university, and a university that has been so loyal to me, and so loyal to those who have played Michigan softball. And so I really can't put it into words, Dave, what this experience, what Michigan and what Ann Arbor means to me and my staff and my student athletes that I've coached, that I played with, and that I currently coach at this time.
Well, that's beautiful stuff there, Coach. I did want to ask you a little bit. We talked about Carol's impact, and one of the things that she did was she started a fundraiser that is a partnership with the American Cancer Society. You guys had it a couple weeks ago. I believe it's 16 years now, and you've raised $2 million for breast cancer research. Help people understand the origins of that fundraiser and what it means to partner for such an amazing cause.
Well, we get a chance to make an impact in the community, in the Ann Arbor community, in the softball community, and for those who are battling the disease and those families who are helping their loved ones battle. And it happened 16 years ago. It was the thought of Coach Hutch to begin an academy that would work alongside the American Cancer Society in our tremendous U of M hospital here, and create a clinic that would help raise funds for research and funding of programs for those families afflicted. And we have marched through $2 million in that 16-year span, and over $2 million. And I can tell you that every May or late April, depending on what our very last weekend of play is, we will host an on-field clinic where the community has an opportunity to interact with our own student athletes, learn a little softball, but really get a chance to spend time with our outstanding student athletes and raise money, all for the fight against breast cancer, all to make sure that more people celebrate more birthdays, because cancer is bigger than any game we ever win. That's the game we want to win. We want to eradicate cancer and allow people to enjoy their families year after year after year without worry. And the fact that we had so many people who are involved in our committee, so many people who are willing to come out and be loyal participants and sponsors of our event. This year we raised nearly $200,000 in that one evening.
Wow. Well, Coach, as you say, that's the big game. I do want to get into the small game before we let you go, and this little matter of the NCAA tournament. First opponent is UCF. Give us a quick scouting report, what you've gleaned on them since the bracket came out.
Well, they're the #2 seed in our regional there in Austin, Texas. And I told the team last night that we're going to be uber focused on UCF and what we can do to beat them. We're going to do our scouting right now. They're a team very similar to us. They pitch well, they play defense well, and they've had quite a tradition here over the last 10 years of success. And so we're familiar with them because we've played them a bit in the last 4 or 5 years. And today we're just getting more familiar as we continue to scout through it. We expect it to be a battle. And they've done a nice job now in the Big 12 Conference. And we're going to be really focused on our first opponent, which is midday on Friday. And it's the job of myself and my staff to look forward and get the scouting done for all the other opponents in that regional. But we're going to take this one pitch at a time, as Coach Hutch says, and we're going to bring our best effort every single inning, every single game.
Well, I'd say whatever message you gave them before the Big Ten tournament, just recycle that one, Coach, because it worked pretty well. Bonnie Tholl, head coach of Michigan. Coach, congratulations on another Big Ten tournament championship. Really a pleasure to visit with you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Our Gatorade game leaders focusing in on the Lacrosse National quarterfinal showdown between Penn State and Notre Dame will be Sunday in Annapolis, Maryland. Nittany Lions getting to this point by knocking off Colgate over the weekend. The Irish are the higher scoring team, but the Nittany Lions the edge in faceoffs and turnovers forced. The winner heads to the Final Four in Foxborough, Mass. to face either top seed Cornell or Richmond. Jeff Tambroni, the head coach of the Nittany Lions, joins us now. And, Coach, before we look ahead to the Irish, let's look back on what was a thrilling game against Colgate. You guys were down in the fourth quarter. You rallied to win it. What did it say about your team to come back in that way?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it after the game in the locker room and talked about it as a staff earlier this morning. It was a gut check, going down 11-10, 5 minutes left. And there were several plays that were made in the middle of the field where we were able to regain possession and have a couple of good offensive possessions there. And I just think the poise and leadership of our team showed with great lengths after being down. So it was probably a good moment for us. And anytime you can have that kind of opportunity in the playoffs and survive and win, you hope that you can take that maturity, take that, kind of a battle-tested mentality with you as you go forward.
Coach, Matt Trainor's kind of been your go-to guy all year. It was Liam Matthews, though, that came up with a couple big goals there down the stretch. And tell me about his contribution and what it meant to have him step up.
Yeah, I mean, we redshirted him last year, so he's come in his first year of playing in the NCAAs, and he's done a terrific job of just continuing to get better each and every week, and plays a little bit of a nuanced role for us off the ball, but the pressure that he took off of Kyle Lehman and Matt Trainor this past week, just being super efficient in his shooting efforts and kind of Johnny on the spot at the end of the game with 2 huge goals to put us in a position to tie it and go up by a goal at the end. So just really proud of him. He's a young man still learning really the system here in the States. He's from Canada. But to see him play the way he did down the stretch was, a credit to him and the work that he's put in.
Talk about young guys stepping up. What about Reed Gillis with the faceoffs? We were showing that comparison with you and Notre Dame and how efficient you guys have been. Reed was tremendous, and this is a freshman, Coach.
Yeah, our starting faceoff midfielder got hurt a couple of weeks ago, and Reed stepped in the Big Ten semifinals against Maryland and did such a good job. And in the last 2 weeks, he's faced off against 2 really good teams and has given us a chance both in the Big Ten playoffs and now in the NCAA playoffs of just being competitive. And it's just remarkable, the fact that he has just remained focused and continued to get better all year as the backup faceoff midi. I mean, certainly he could lose his focus as a freshman. It's a long year, especially as a backup in that position, but knowing not only that he is ready to go out and take the faceoffs in the position that he's in, but also having success. It's just, it's given us a chance. And certainly against Colgate, we needed every one of them to get over the hump.
Coach, you have said historically that you focus more on relationships in building a team than you do on season-ending targets. But obviously, you want to be peaking at the right time, which you guys have done here. How do those relationships help you to be playing your best lacrosse when you get to this point of the season?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, it comes down to this point in the year, the margin of error is just so slim. And I know it sounds a little corny at times, but like love of one another and respect for each other in terms of the journey that you're going through is by far the most important piece. This selfless purpose, so to speak, about why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. And I think, the X's and O's, they're important tactically, offensively, defensively. That stuff is important. But when it comes to these moments, like if you take the Colgate game with 5 minutes left, playing with purpose and recognizing the relationships that you're forming and who you're competing for and why you're even competing in the first place kind of takes the edge off a little bit and the pressure off of having to do something. And it shifts the kind of the paradigm over to the opportunity to get out there and compete with the guys that you love. And we stressed it a lot in our culture. And, we were thankful that the guys were able to see it through here last Saturday and hope that will lead the way as we go into Sunday's contest against Notre Dame.
Let's talk about that game against Notre Dame. They're the two-time defending national champs. They haven't necessarily had a year that would scream defending national champs, and yet they're playing well here. They knock off a really good Ohio State team. So give us a sense of the challenge that the Fighting Irish present.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a team that's battle tested, it's a team that's won the last two national championships. And, it's a tough venture in any stretch to continue to keep guys motivated, through preseason and scrimmages and regular season games, especially when you've played through Memorial Day over the last couple of years and have won. So they're playing their best lacrosse of the year right now. And as you mentioned, being a terrific, Big Ten champion Ohio State team. So they're athletic all over the field. They got great experience all over the field. They're extremely well coached. Coach Corrigan's been there for 30 plus years. So, I mean, they have a lot going for them right now. But at the end of the day, it's 60 minutes lacrosse, and it's important for our guys to just recognize it's not always the best team. It's the team that plays the best. And hopefully the experiences that we've had throughout the course of this year in a really tough Big Ten conference in our non-conference schedule will prepare them for everything that we'll face and then some on Sunday afternoon.
Well, Jeff Tambroni, head coach of Penn State lacrosse. Coach, good to talk to you again. I hope we can speak again later here in the spring. It'll mean you've moved on again, but congratulations on your success and looking forward to this game against the Irish this weekend.
Great. Thanks so much for having me again.
Big Ten Today is fueled by Gatorade. Is it in you?
UCLA baseball rolled into Champaign this weekend and came away with a sweep of the Fighting Illini. The second of those three wins was number 800 for Coach John Savage in his 24-year career, with all but 88 of them coming in Westwood. Bruins finished the regular season at home against Northwestern. They're a game behind Iowa in the battle for the Big Ten regular season crown. And John Savage, the head coach of the Bruins, joins us now for our big interview. Coach, I mentioned it, 800 wins. Congratulations on that milestone. What does the number 800 victories mean to you?
Just a lot of thankfulness, really, for having the ability to be at UCLA, having some wonderful student athlete group, assistant coaches, administration. There's so many people involved in terms of building a winning program and a sustainable program. And, it's, longevity and consistency in one spot. I do like that. I do like the trust. I like the loyalty factor on both sides. And I've been very fortunate.
Coming into this weekend, you guys have hit a minor bump in the road in what's been a really good year, but you had lost 3 in a row coming in. How important was that series in Illinois to kind of righting the ship here and get it pointing in the right direction as you head into this last regular season weekend and then the postseason? Yeah,
I think riding the ship is the correct phrase. I mean, USC fully outplayed us the weekend before. We won on Friday, but it was a 7-6 game, and then they handled us on Saturday and Sunday, really, and we didn't play very well against Long Beach State on Tuesday, and so, we got a little gut check for sure. And those are good things if you can handle them the right way. We've had some, monster years where we've had adversity, and are looking back and say, you know what, that weekend was what we needed, and that little stretch is what we needed, and I think that's what we needed at the end of the day. We got back on track and played pretty well in Champaign, and looking forward to this weekend against Northwestern. What
are you most pleased with overall with this group this year?
I just think the togetherness. We had the ballpark issue in the fall, and we were out on the road basically every day on the bus, going to JCs and high schools, and the connection. We had a bad year last year, and we were not really used to those sorts of years, and I think everybody was fully committed to getting back together. And I think you would have to say the offense. The offense is Brian's done a really, really good job of putting those guys in the right spot, and certainly our defense. Our defense has been elite. I think we lead the country in double plays. I think we're fielding over 980 or 980. Whenever you see the 980 and above, you're always in the top 15, 20 in the country. And I think our pitching clearly has to get better if we're going to make a run in this thing. But at the end of the day, offensively, we've been really good. On base percentage, slug, all kinds of different ways of winning games. We won some really, really tight games. We won some 7-6 games. We won some 3-1 games. Good teams win in a lot of different varieties. And I just think that this group has come together, and the leadership, the internal leadership is really solid.
It's interesting you mentioned last year, Coach, and it was the worst season of your tenure, really by a significant margin. And you look at it, I think, certainly now with how well you guys have played, and it's clearly an aberration. But when you're in it, it can be scary, I would imagine, right? To think, man, what's going on here? How do you go about when you're in a year like that, and then the offseason, which you mentioned, you guys kind of had a weird situation with the stadium and you were nomads a little bit. How do you go about reestablishing the identity of your program?
Well, again, it's a gut check. It's you have to look at every phase. I mean, you got to look at development. You got to look at recruiting. You got to look at the roster. Things have changed so dramatically with COVID, and then the portal, and then the pay to play side of things, and the draft, the 20 rounds. I mean, we were the best team in the country in 19 and for 3 months, and we were the number one team in the country. And then 20, we came back and we were unbelievable in 20, and then COVID hit, and then we went to the postseason in the following 2 years, and then the last 2 years have hit. So just a lot of uneasiness, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of injuries, a lot of youth. Those are all really poor ingredients to win at this level in this era of old players. We still believe in the 3-year panel. We believe in an 18, 19, 20-year-old sending a guy out. A lot of our 22, 23-year-olds are in, really are AA or AAA or even in the major leagues. So, but in this age of college baseball, it's a lot like football and basketball. You can't win young. It's nearly impossible. And that's what we tried to do last year. And, I think we had the most at bats we're near the top of most at bats and most innings of any program in the country. There was JCs that were older than us in Southern California, believe it or not. So that's a hard formula for regardless of the talent level. There was the number one recruiting class in the country, and they got handled. But the payoff is you're seeing it now. You're seeing, boys turn into men. You're seeing Cape Cod summers, Northwood summers that really come to its head during their sophomore year, and really the future is very, very bright. I mean, these guys are, I don't want to say a year ahead. I mean, that's kind of sounds silly in today's world, but these guys have really have stepped up, made a big move in terms of where we were and where we are today. And, there's just a lot of contribution in a lot of different areas.
You were talking about that freshman class last year, and Rock Shalasky was one of the big-time recruits in that class, and he had a good year last year. He's having an incredible year this year. He's leading you in average, leading you in home runs. I mean, all the statistics, everything he does defensively, too, as a shortstop, all that anyone can see who turns you guys on and watches you. I think what we can't see is the leadership. Help people understand that part of Rock.
Rock is Rock. I mean, he's such a leader off the field. I mean, his play speaks for itself. His defensive prowess is, I think he's a major league shortstop. We've had major league shortstops, Pat Valleca, and of course Brandon Crawford and Matt McClain, and he's one of those guys, no question about it. He's made one error in the Big Ten play. His defense has been flawless, and you're talking about a slug shortstop, a Tudolitsky type shortstop, a Longoria type shortstop. I know Evan played third in the big leagues, but he came out as a shortstop, and I'm just talking about West Coast guys that were big time guys, and he reminds me of those sorts of guys. I mean, he gets on base. He's very, very unselfish in many ways. You look at his walks, you look at his hit by pitches, you look at his his doubles, you look at his home runs. I mean, there's impact in every phase, and there's impact defensively. I mean, I think he's a Gold Glove defender. I think he's a, you know, if there's a better shortstop out there, I haven't seen him. But certainly, you know, his makeup comes from an unbelievable baseball family. Tika and Dan have raised him, and you know, he's a baseball guy through and through. He knows history of baseball. He respects the history of baseball. I mean, he does his own scouting reports on guys, and he knows, you know, who's playing well and who's not, and who's made the most errors and who's played really good defense. And I mean, he knows everybody on the field. I mean, and you're talking about opponents. We're just not talking about his own team. So you're just talking about a very well-rounded, I don't want to say old school, but, you know, you would have to kind of put that description on there. It's just, I think any organization would just love to have this guy. This guy's all about winning. It's his main goal, main objective each and every day. He's a tremendous competitor, and it just rubs off on a lot of different people.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time. Exciting weekend. I know, I guess it starts Thursday for you guys, so early weekend as the Big Ten typically does in this last week of the regular season. Big matchups with Northwestern. Some of that action will be here on the Big Ten Network. Really appreciate it, and best of luck as you guys chase a Big Ten title in your first year in the league.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.
Well, back to softball next. 8 Big Ten teams still in the hunt for a spot in Oklahoma City. Take a look at the bracket, break down the first round matchup. Stick around. Back on Big Ten today, the big board showing off the 8 Big Ten softball teams bound for the NCAA tourney, including 2 that will host regionals, UCLA and Oregon. Bruins open up against Cal Santa Barbara. The Ducks will face Weber State. We already mentioned Big Ten champ Michigan. Indiana in for the 3rd straight year. Jordy Ball and Nebraska face UConn and Baton Rouge. 5th straight bid for Northwestern. They get Kentucky. Ohio State headed to Knoxville to face UNC. And Washington in for the 31st straight time, taking on Mississippi State in Lubbock. Kylan Mills, Sydney Supley taking a deep dive into the matchups.
Thanks, Dave. What a selection Sunday it was for Big Ten softball programs. A conference record 8 teams punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament. Michigan, the squad that earns the automatic bid after a couple of massive upsets. They win the Big Ten tournament title last weekend. What do you make of the Wolverines as they look ahead to an Austin regional?
That anything can happen when you have belief, and that's exactly what Michigan had. Coach Bonnie Tholl said all season long, she said, pay your deposits, pay your deposits. Eventually, it will pay off, and boy, did it in a big way. It was an excellent job from Lauren Durkowski, Aaron Hayne to be able to split every single game in the tournament. That ended up being the difference maker for them. Then you had hitters step up like Janisa Conaway, who was a part of the all-tournament team. But this is a Michigan team that when they have belief on their side, we've seen it before, they can go scary deep in the tournament. And I like their chances in coming in to now a really possible win type of situation regional.
I'm a broken record because I keep saying this, but Michigan had 11 regular season losses in the Big Ten. 9 of those losses were to 3 of the top 4 teams, Oregon, UCLA, Ohio State. I believe this is a team that could make some noise in the postseason. How about UCLA, the team they beat in that Big Ten tournament final? They earn a number 9 seed. They get to play host, which is a big deal out there on the West Coast. Through the first 2 rounds, they play UCSB to start things off. This is a UCLA team that has a ton of power in the bats, and they've got a really deep pitching staff. What do you like about the Bruins as you look ahead to their regional?
They win, and I think people often forget that they're the only team in the country right now who has 49 wins. To be able to have that type of resume, they have the 9th strongest schedule when you look at outside of non-conference type of play. You mentioned it, it's a deep pitching staff. The fact that they had 3 different arms who could throw each day is unbelievable, and Kelly Inouye-Perez did that for a reason. She wanted all 3 of her aces to have a Friday start, a Saturday start, and a Sunday start. They know how to start, they know how to close. And then you have the Bash brothers between Jordan Woolbury and Megan Grant. Anything is possible between the 2 of them. They have 20 home runs and 23. They set the RPI record between RBIs with over 140 plus.
Another team that has some really good arms is the Oregon Ducks, the Big Ten regular season champions. Unfortunately, an early exit in the tournament, but they earn a number 16 seed, which means they also get to host facing Weber State in the first round. What's your outlook for the Ducks here in the postseason?
That they are hosting regionals is a huge deal because they weren't sure if that was going to be possible for them. And to be able to play at home in Eugene, they have thrived all season long, winning big games there. They need to get Lindsey Grind back up to her prime, and then you have Elisa Kolsky. But for them, it's their offense that is so deadly, being able to score in a ton of different ways. They have so much speed on the bases, led by Kai Lushar, who has 50-plus stolen bases, and then that home run capability. Riley McCoy is still a huge threat for potentially securing National Freshman of the Year. So this is an Oregon team who I think is going to come back with a vengeance after their early exit and really take it out on whoever they are facing in their regional.
Nebraska's another team I know that you like to come out with a vengeance in the NCAA tournament. They fell to UCLA in the Big Ten tournament semifinals. They face UConn. They will be playing in the LSU regional here in NCAA tournament play. Why are the Huskers so scary to you right now?
Nobody wanted to face them, and I actually love their matchup going to this LSU regional. I think it's very winnable as long as they play their game. And by that, you need to have a prime Jordy Ball on the mound. She has 20-plus wins. She's at 19 home runs. If the season were to end right now, she would set Nebraska's record for the highest batting average ever. And on top of that, it's a lineup that 1 through 9, they could do a lot of damage. And even coming off the bench, they have 14 different players who've hit a home run. So it's just coming down to, can their bats stay alive in this regional? And if so, behind Ball on the mound, they can make some noise and be an upset alert.
Jordy Ball, the first ever Big Ten pitcher and player of the year, doing ridiculous stuff on both sides. She alone is a tough opponent to face. I don't think anyone really wants to go up against Jordy Ball as Nebraska gets ready for NCAA tournament action. Ohio State, another team that could be very scary in the postseason because of how big the bats are. If they get going, if they get a hold of a pitcher, they do not stop. The nation's leaders in home runs. What do you make of the Buckeyes playing in the Knoxville Regional facing North Carolina to start things off?
They're a pitcher's nightmare. The fact that, again, 1 through 9, anybody could hit a home run, and to put some numbers, they're at 137. The two only other teams who have over 100 are Virginia Tech and Oklahoma, which is incredible company to be in. The only Achilles heel that they have to watch is being able to limit the runs that are scored against them. You have a team ERA that's above 4, so as long as they can keep those home run bats and keep enough off the boards, I really like their chances. But you also have to love storylines within a regional. And head coach for the Buckeyes in her first year, Coach Kumar, has an opportunity to face her prior team within Miami of Ohio, who, of course, happens to be at the same regional.
Speaking of storylines, there were 4 Big Ten teams that were really on the bubble in like the 35 to 50 range in terms of the RPI. Now, keep in mind, there are 32 at-large bids available in the NCAA softball tournament, so you didn't really know who's going to be in, who's going to be out. 3 of those 4 teams make it in Washington, Indiana, and then your Northwestern Wildcats. It brought a tear to Sydney Supley's eye when that was announced on Selection Sunday. What do you make, or what are your impressions of just the strength of the conference and the fact that 3 of those 4 teams make it in to secure 8 total Big Ten teams in the postseason?
If last weekend did not make enough noise, the fact that an 8 seed can win and upset the best of the best teams in the Big Ten from the regular season, and that this competition is real. And this is going to prepare these teams heading in for the first time, having 8 different programs that will represent our conference and be able to have teams who finished below at that 5 seed mark make the tournament. It says a lot of depth that puts us in conversations like SEC level. I think you have Indiana, who leads the nation in batting average. They can make a lot of noise. Lauren Boyd on the mound for Northwestern makes anything possible. And then you have a young, scrappy Washington team led by Alexis DeBoer, who, when she's in the lineup, she also can create a lot of noise. So I love the chances. I think nobody wants to have a Big Ten team in their regional right now.
Northwestern 49th in the RPI, really an eyebrow raiser, but the Cats are going dancing, the Huskies going dancing, the Hoosiers going dancing as well. Going to be a lot of fun to cover these teams. Look forward to having you back on the desk here, Sid, to talk about all of that as we approach NCAA tournament play. That'll do it for us for now. We'll send it back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Kyle. And final weekend of Big Ten baseball. Still 3 teams in the hunt for the conference crown and the #1 seed at the conference tourney in Omaha. Iowa is up a game on UCLA. They're up 2 on Oregon, who they will host for a 3-game set starting Thursday in Iowa City. The top 12 make it to the Big Ten tourney. Illinois, Michigan State, Northwestern among the teams battling for that final spot. Mike Huff shares his thoughts heading down the home stretch.
So much excitement coming up for this final weekend of the Big Ten baseball season. When you think about the fact that UCLA, having swept Illinois, has now put themselves in a position. They've been in second place for a while, but they're only one in the loss column behind Iowa. The team behind UCLA, who beat them 2 out of 3, Oregon. So guess what? The Bruins are actually pulling for Oregon to at least win 2, get 2 losses, and if somehow UCLA can get hot, they're playing their final series of the season at home against Northwestern and can sweep Northwestern, they have a chance to sneak in and get that regular season title in their first year in the Big Ten. The other big story I'm really going to watch is for Michigan. Michigan going into last weekend was all about on the outside. Last 4 teams just missing getting into the NCAA tournament. So I was thinking with 7 games left, if they can win 5 of the 7, they might have a chance. If they can win a couple games in the tournament, unfortunately for them, good for Nebraska. Nebraska took 2 out of 3. So Michigan has their back against the wall. They're playing a very dangerous Indiana ball club their final weekend of the season. If they can sweep, they win their midseason and they can sweep against Indiana, they're going to go into the Big Ten tournament on a good positive note, and winning a couple games might be just enough to get them into the NCAA tournament as an at-large, and they don't have to worry about winning the whole tournament.
How about some rowing? Top-ranked Washington men's team held off a late challenge from New Zealand to retain the Windermere Cup back on May 3rd. This was the 29th win for the Husky men in this event, which they've been hosting every year since the late 80s. Our Big Ten Network Originals team taking a closer look at this annual celebration of the sport.
The first Saturday in May is the opening day of boating season here in the Pacific Northwest. It is a 100-year-old tradition to have a parade to celebrate that. We historically put a regatta in front of that.
My dad is the founder of our real estate company, and he had an idea to sponsor international rowers to start a regatta. The first people we could invite is Russia at the time, and this was still during the Cold War.
To get the Soviet Union to come to race here was a really big deal. And they were the world champions.
The initial thinking was to bring in the best international teams that they could. They didn't want to see the Huskies just beat up on other teams in the Cup. They said, let's bring the best from around the world.
We've been able to attract some of the best rowing programs, clubs, or national teams. This year, we have New Zealand, and on the women's side, we have a Big Ten foe, Indiana.
With boats lined the whole course, it is so loud the whole way. There's just this energy as you go into the cut, which truly propels you to the finish line.
It is unlike any other rowing event in the world.
When you're racing through, you're getting into the last 500, you hear so many people.
The noise, the energy, the buzz around it is just really unique to this regatta.
The city of Seattle loves rowing. Rowing is an integral piece of the fabric of this community. It's not about a rivalry, it really is about the celebration of rowing.
1, 2, 3.
Great stuff there. The Huskies will participate in the Big Ten Rowing Championships for the first time this weekend. You can see the finals live on the Big Ten Network. Coverage from Indianapolis begins Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. The dramatic conclusion of our show next. We'll take you on a trip around the Big Ten from the weekend, catch you up on everything that happened in the quest for national championships. Stick around. It is time to go around the Big Ten. Maryland men's lacrosse dominated its NCAA tourney opener, topping Air Force 13-5. Senior Eric Spanos led the way, a career-high 6 goals on the day. The Terps' all-time saves leader, Logan McNaney, had 10 stops. Maryland will face Georgetown in the quarterfinals on Sunday. Northwestern women's lacrosse took down conference foe Michigan yesterday, winning at 15-7. Story of the day, Madison Taylor, who scored 10 goals, an NCAA tourney record. She now has 99 on the year, tying Izzy Skane's school mark set 2 years ago. Next up for the Cats, Penn, Thursday in Evanston. The winner heads to the Final Four. UCLA men's volleyball will shoot for a third straight national title tonight in Columbus after defeating Hawaii on Saturday. The third-seeded Bruins will face top-seed Long Beach State for the national championship, rematch of last season's title game, which UCLA won. UCLA men's tennis defeated crosstown rival USC 4-2 Friday afternoon. Bruins punching their ticket to the NCAA championship quarterfinal round in Waco, Texas, where they will face the third-seeded Texas Longhorns. And that'll do it for us. Thanks so much for watching Big Ten Today. We will see you for the show tomorrow. Andy Katz joining me on the program. If that doesn't get you to watch, I don't know what will. We will talk about the NBA Draft Combine and lots of other off-season storylines in Big Ten hoops. See you then.